So I made this caption that says, when they used to love him, and then I did kind of take this from somewhere that says why people hate Trump. And where I really wanted to take this story has really less to do with politics and more to do with real life, right? And I got a couple scenarios that I want to throw in there. See, in the community, right, the culture, right, that's how we say it, right? The culture, we used to put Donald Trump in a lot of music videos. He was always mentioned in rap songs. He was on Oprah. Donald, and even outside of the culture and community, like Donald Trump was everywhere, right? He was the what was the name of that show when he would say "You're fired," right? He was known as the American businessman, right? He was known as the American businessman, the guy in New York who, was a billionaire, right? Had his stuff together, right? Was the example of what an American businessman and American guy is, right? And for years, this man was praised for that, right? He ran as a Democrat at one point, right? And I remember when Donald Trump ran, I was like, man, why is Donald Trump running for president? And I believe he was a Democrat for sure. And he didn't win. He got nowhere close. And then he came, and then he actually got some steamroll going. And then he became the Republican candidate. And then he started to get some love behind him. Then he won the presidential election. And this, my friends, is where the hate started for Donald Trump. And this is a classic story of what human beings do to people, to you, to people that are in the media. We love to see people ascend, and we love to see people go up. And we want them to be humble on their way up. We want them to thank everybody on their way up. We want them to stay the same. But there is something about a human element where after so long of seeing someone win and be around and be in the media or even in your family, right? There are people like this. They then want to see them fall. They then start to grow this type of resentment. They start growing this type of hatred for somebody. And you're like, well, where did this come from? And it happens time after time after time. I would like to throw in a scenario without people getting emotional, right? Because I know this gets people emotionally worked up. And I'm going to pivot this just a tad bit over to hip hop. And a prime example of this is Kendrick versus Drake, right? You got Drake, pop star, obviously is an international star. But once he was very, very hot at one point, the culture loved him. He was going on. He's at the top. But all of a sudden, he gets, has a rap beef against somebody that the culture really, really loves. And then now what they want to do is they want to shoot down Drake, and then they want to destroy him. But they loved him on the way up. All right. And again, there's more and more situations of this across the board. What we're seeing is a classic case of we love you when you're up, but we want to tear you down. They do this to Hollywood actors all the time, right? Just happened to one of, Jonathan Majors is one of them, right? He didn't really get to ascend all the way, but now he got destroyed. It happened to Johnny Depp and all of these guys. It happens a lot in Hollywood where we love them, we love their movies, we love their talent, and then when one thing happens, we want to tear them all the way down. This is what's going on with Trump. You got Trump hate, like you got Drake hate. All right. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of comments about people saying, oh, here come the Drake fan. He just a Drake stan. But it's the truth. You got a lot of Trump hate to the point where people are willing to vote for a man who is old, incompetent, cannot run the country because they hate Donald Trump. There are people that voted against Donald Trump in 2020, and their main reasoning was, I just don't like Donald Trump. That is a hate for someone. If I'm voting against you, not because I like this guy, is what? It's a form of hate. And Donald Trump gets a lot of that. A lot of hate. Right? You got a lot of love coming up until you start, I would use the term doing too much, right? That's what our community likes to say, doing too much. Now he's doing everything, right? Now he's the president. Now he's under a spotlight. Now we see him all the time, and we can pick things apart that we do and don't like about someone. And we're so fickle as a human being. Anything could be the reason why we don't want to rock with you. This is what is happening to Donald Trump.
Audio Jungle.
It's not that people don't like his policies. They just don't like the way he says things. They have a hate for him, that they don't care who the other opponent is. They will just vote against him. There's people still saying the same thing now in 2024. I'm just voting against Donald Trump. That's all. I just can't stand him. Well, when you ask them why, it has to do with person and not policy. Oh, well, he's got all these cases. Oh, well, he said grab him by the part, and that's just not the way this a person should talk. And I said, well, what about the policies that he put down and the money that he put in, and he also gave money to HBCUs, and there's a lot of grants going around. There was a lot of money floating around. He was cutting down some taxes for you and stuff like that. Yeah, man, but I just don't like him, man. I just can't rock with Trump. You just can't. And there's no real explanation. Because they've heard the media talking points, and people listen to the media, and they've sunken into their brain, and they have to be reprogrammed, deprogrammed. So I asked the question, do you really hate Trump? Or have you just been programmed not to like him based off of what the media has said about him? Is it media influenced? Or do you just not like him because you actually sat down with your own brain and heard him talk about certain things and policies that you just don't rock with and align with? That is the question that I pose. That is the question that I ask, because the responses that I've heard over the last 4 years have not been acceptable answers. I think I've heard one where someone just says, I just don't like this, and that, and I'm more for this. And it was like an actual policy-based conversation. It was like, oh, okay, well, all right. Let me tell you one thing about this, and I want to get off this. And I'm laughing now because I was right about this. 3.5 years ago, there was a conversation that I had with a group of people. And we were sitting at a table. And at this particular time, Trump had lost the election. And the political persecution had started for Donald Trump, right? It started. The Trump cases were coming. They wanted to know about his taxes. And so they were saying, yeah, he's going to be in jail in the next 4 years. Oh, that's 4 years down the road. He probably won't be the candidate because he's going to be in jail. And all the talking points that you still hear to this day. I was the one that stood up, the only one that stood up in the midst of all of this and said, he's not going to go to jail. Okay, he's not going to jail. Unless you want to take Secret Service and everybody with him. He's not going to jail, number one. He's going to end up becoming the primary candidate because politics comes down to money. And this is why you have good politicians that don't really make it to the forefront because they don't have enough money and donors. And I kept saying it's always about the money. He's a billionaire. Well, they're about to take all his campaign or his money. He's about to be broke, going through all these lawsuits. And I said that at that table. He will be the primary candidate for the Republican Party. I also said if you get him in front of the TV again, because this is when they were taking him off of Twitter and everything else, right? I said the moment that you put him back on the national stage in front of everybody, he will gain momentum again. And they argued me up and down. It was 3 people that argued me up and down about it. And what they said to end the conversation was, well, we will see in 4 years if Donald Trump is still running. Can you guys tell me who the 2 candidates are right now? Is Trump in jail right now? Is Trump the primary candidate right now? Did Trump just get on national TV again after being silenced after Twitter and everything else? And did he not just gain more momentum as soon as he got on TV? After being silenced and after basically being, I was going to say demonetized, but after, basically not having a platform? Everything that I said 3.5 years ago is happening right now. And I hate to say it like this, but I told you so. Because I wasn't thinking from an emotional standpoint of what they're trying to do to him. I'm looking at it from a strategy standpoint. He's a billionaire. Billionaires create new rules, people. This is a new game that they have that we just don't know about. And they kept saying, well, he's going to be broke. And they're saying, well, they say he doesn't have enough money for this and that. He just paid like $120 something million in New York, something like that, after doing an appeal. Got convicted about the Stormy Daniels in 48 hours. He freaking made like over $100 million. It's always about the money. And that's what I said at that table. I said, it's always about the money. Follow the money. And they kept telling me that Donald Trump would not be in office. He's not going to be the candidate. And I kept telling them, you're wrong. And I even said at that time, which was a bold statement to make 3.5 years ago, I said, if he becomes primary candidate and gets back on TV, he's going to win the election.
Audio Jungle.
I promise you, I made that statement 3.5 years ago. I've even made that statement on the Cold Summer podcast, back in September of 2023, before all this happened. Look at the poll numbers right now. And the poll numbers after the debate, the presidential debate, are insane. Donald Trump is on his way to a landslide victory if people show up and vote. So I say that to say this. When it comes to politics, it's always about the money. Follow the money. You guys were thinking that Donald Trump was going to go to jail and be in prison and be behind bars because that's what people want to see. That's what the selfish people want to see, that their selfish minds want to see that man in jail just to see him in jail and ride away, right? Just like we do and see everybody else. That way we don't got to deal with him no more. But the truth of the matter is, what has happened is that it's made him stronger because people started to understand that this is not fair. And this happens in the justice system, which we know isn't fair. And he started to get more momentum and more voters. And you know what was funny? He started to get more black support, more Hispanic support.
Audio Jungle.
The Democratic strategy is totally blowing up in their face. And then Joe Biden asked for the debate and got completely pummeled on stage. And you asked for the fight. Nothing is more embarrassing than when a man says, I want to fight you, I want to box you, Me and you, I'm calling you out, and I'm going to make the rules like they did on CNN and completely lose the fight by a blowout. The Democratic strategy is blowing up in their faces. And they are in panic mode moments after the debate. It was almost like they were all on a big conference call and they were all saying the same thing. MSNBC, CNN, and even liberal YouTube stations were all on the same page. They are not confident in Joe Biden being the president and winning the election. The flaws have been exposed, which a lot of people have already known about him. But when you put him on a national stage, you guys keep talking about speeches that he's done. He's done really well in a commencement speech. He's done really well in his last speech. But when it comes to debating, when it comes to standing behind what you believe in, he does a horrible job. And how does he do in a room full of world leaders? This man cannot negotiate. We need a man who's going to step up, have a backbone, challenge these people, and help our country. We don't need a man because y'all think, well, he looks nice. He looks cool. He's fragile. He reminds me of my grandpa. He's cool. I don't care about that stuff that makes you feel good. I want somebody that's going to go put in some work, not somebody that just looks the part because he says things a certain way. He says it nicely than the other person. I don't care about that. When that man is sitting across from Putin and a bunch of other people, I want to know that he's putting in work. I want to know that he's not bowing down to these people if it doesn't make sense for the United States. That's what I got to say about Donald Trump. And so when people loved him, it was because he wasn't in a significant position that affected people. The moment he did, then we can now start figuring out things that you like and don't like about him. And then you just develop something called Trump hate. And you don't even know why you don't like him. And if you sat down and took off the bias for a second, you would rock with some of the stuff he's saying because it makes sense for all Americans.
Audio Jungle.
Right? And then for the people that want to bring up January 6th, right? The man did not escort these crazy lunatics down to January 6th to go and blow up the White House that he has been in. I am not responsible for a bunch of dummies that decide to go out and do something that I didn't say. And if he says go down there and y'all can protest, y'all can protest. This reminds me of car meets that I go to, right? There's people that host car meets. Hey, let's meet here. Yo, let's meet here. Let's have a good time. And then when they start burning out and cops start showing up, do I start blaming the guy who organized the event? Because he's not the one burning out and causing issues in the parking lot, causing fights. It's the dummies that come to the party that do that. And so when we talk about policy, the answer is simple here, guys. You knew what the economy was like. You knew what the policies were when Donald Trump was here. Do we not? We do. We are now living in Biden's America, and we now see what that is like. The comparison is fresh, very fresh, so fresh that you understand, okay, this is what I was feeling and my family was going through during this time, and this is what I'm going through right now. And I know what both of these guys have done and are capable of doing. And now people are not fooled anymore by a bunch of people just talking and blowing hot air out of their mouths. We got two guys that have actually been presidents. And the poll numbers are showing that. All right. That is my show.